Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Westworld Season 4. In this video, I will review all of Season 4 of Westworld as a whole. So I have to start with a spoiler warning for Season 4 of Westworld. If you have not seen this season in its entirety, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, Season 4 of Westworld. As you may know, if you've been following my channel at all, I did not care for Season 1 of Westworld as much as everyone else. Everyone and their mother says that Season 1 was by far the best season of Westworld, and each season kind of went downhill after that, or to varying degrees, but I happen to disagree. I think Season 1 is one of the most overrated seasons of television of all time. Season 2 is better, and Season 3 is one of my favorite seasons of television of all time. I thought Season 3 was a masterpiece. So, coming off of that, I was a bit, wondering if Season 4 would be able to keep up the quality of that I felt was delivered in Season 3. Now, most people, of course, thought Season 1 was a masterpiece and Season 3 was where the show jumped the shark and it was terrible. I always remain one of the mysteries of the world how the majority of people can feel that way. But so many people thought that Season 4 was a return to form for the show, that they were going back to its roots, that it was, steeping a lot of interesting mysteries and puzzles to be solved for the season. But honestly, I didn't really want to see the show return to its roots because I liked Season 3 better than Season 1. But there were still aspects of what I liked about Seasons 2 and 3 that were still present in this season. It's not like this season was a total, copy or redo of Season 1. It wasn't. But here's the thing, I feel like I felt a bit disconnected at the start of Season 4 because there was a time jump in between seasons, and I felt like I didn't really care for that. I felt like it distanced me from what was happening. Now, they talked about a war that happened in between seasons, and I felt really lost. I guess I misread Season 3, or the ending of Season 3, because it was my impression that they had defeated Rehoboam, and now there was this chaos was ensuing, and there was a new world that was going to come out of this massive change. But when Season 4 begins, apparently there was this 8-year war that happened off screen. I don't know who they were fighting or what the deal with this war was. I thought they had already defeated Rehoboam. And then we see Caleb right back at the same job he was working at the start of Season 3 and talking to his coworker who says that it was kind of pointless destroying the Rehoboam because it didn't really change much, and we see signs indicating they defeat the machine, our destiny is our own. Now, to me, that kind of deflates everything that apparently this show skipped over these 8 years, and after these 8 years, everything went back to normal. And it felt like destroying Rehoboam and everything that they accomplished in Season 3 was kind of meant nothing, which to me kind of deflated what I felt was the show. Now, they introduced a lot more interesting mysteries, particularly at the start of the season. We see the Man in Black going to this dam and killing the cartel that controlled it to take control of it, and apparently they have these insects that can make people do whatever they want, and we see Hale is really hatching this plot, and then we get this mystery side plot of Dolores, who's calling herself Christina, who's working in New York City. Things about it seem a bit off. And then we get another plot introduced in, I believe, episode 3, where we see Bernard return from the Sublime, saying that there's only one path that can save the world, and he goes to seek someone out who he believes can save the world. So these are all very interesting mysteries. And I was intrigued, and I was sucked in by them. Of course, they're all, acted, portrayed very well, really well written. But in the back of my mind, of course, I was thinking that I felt a bit disconnected from the characters because of the time jump. Now, and then later we see Maeve and Caleb investigate what is a new Westworld, which is apparently like 1920s world, and we see that same robbery that was recreated, that was from season 1 and recreated in season 2 in Shogun world. Now we see it again in 1920s world. I kind of, as I said, this is like looking backwards. Like, I don't need to see this again. But of course, that wasn't the main plot. The main plot was Caleb and Maeve trying to, take down Hale. And we get some really, really creepy scenes, particularly that noise that controls people. Like, that was creepy as all fuck. And then, of course, we get this huge reveal at the end of season 4 that Hale had already won. She had already defeated Caleb, in the storyline that we have with Bernard is actually taking place 23 years after that, when Caleb's daughter Frankie has grown up. And she is the woman that Bernard thinks can save the world or save humanity. And so I was really impressed with that reveal. That was a huge shocker, and I think it really pulled the wool over my eyes. It was a bold move to, instead of saying, here's this going to be this huge conflict with Hale, it's actually saying, nah, she already won. Like, these scenes with Caleb and Maeve, they're taking place in the past. Everything else is, like, the whole Christina thing and the whole Bernard thing, that's all in what they were calling now the present, and Hale's already won. So there is no war. She's controlling all of humanity and controls them with these, the insects and the sounds, and it's basically turned their cities into versions of Westworld, where the humans are now the hosts who are being controlled, and she can control them and tell them what to do. And it was very daunting, very dark twist. And of course, Caleb died 23 years ago, and this version of Caleb in the present is just his mind being put into a host, which, as we've seen in previous seasons, can only survive for like 48 hours or 24 hours, is not very long. And so it was a very dark and disturbing twist. And we get that Frankie, who calls herself C now, is part of a resistance of outliers who are immune to Hale's control, but there's only a few of them, and they're building this resistance to try to take down Hale. And then so Bernard goes to her and says, we need a weapon, and so they spend several episodes looking for the weapon, and the weapon turns out to be Maeve. Now, Frankie's still very iffy on Bernard, whether or not she can trust Bernard and Stubbs, but then they go on a mission with their leader, and he Jay, and they come back, and he's been replaced by a host, and Frankie almost dies by his hands, but then Maeve wakes up and saves her at the last moment. So this whole time we're building for Maeve to be this huge weapon that will take down Hale, and Frankie as the savior, the only person who can save the world, save humanity. So this is what we've been building. In the meantime, we're getting this Christina storyline, which is very intriguing, and it opens up a lot of mysteries. Things are behaving strangely. because a man comes up to her and gets really upset and claims that she's controlling him, and asks her to stop, and she doesn't know what he's talking about. And then Teddy shows up, saves her from him, and is this handsome, charming man who's there to rescue her. But things seem a bit off, and then later we get the revelation that she in fact has the ability to control all human beings, and is controlling all their paths, and Teddy kind of walks her through this. So, and then we get some really, really great scenes, like the episode that had Caleb being recreated by Hale and trying to escape and encountering all these past versions of him who were dead or dying. That was one of the more creepy episodes I've seen. So there's a lot of stuff this season that I love, that really worked for me, that was dark and twisted, and mysteries that kept me interested. But here's the thing. Like I was saying as I was reviewing the show throughout, that a lot of how I like the episodes or the season as a whole depended on where they were going with it. Because a lot of it was just like mysteries or like leading towards something, so they weren't really what I would call standalone. They were kind of just leading to something, and so I was constantly saying the season kind of will live or die on its ending and how satisfying the conclusions for everything was. And how satisfying did I find it? Not very. To be honest, I would describe the ending of the season as a disappointment, because it turns out that Maeve, who was this weapon that they were going to look for, and they buried her, unburied her from the desert and put her back together, and it was this huge argument, should they revive her? And she comes back to life. She's like, okay, let's get going. And she just fights Hale and dies immediately. So she does nothing. Bernard said that Frankie was the savior of humanity. Turns out that he was just full of shit, and he was purposely lying, just to get people to go where they need to go, because she turns out to do nothing except for maybe kill Clementine, who had decided to kill the Outliers for no good reason, I guess, and has a really tearful reunion with her father, which was really emotionally powerful. That was a huge character payoff for her, but there was no plot payoff for her. Because she was built as this huge savior, and she didn't really do anything. and so for me, it was like a lot of promise. Now, the logical explanation is that Bernard was just telling lies in order to get everyone to where they needed to be and what they needed to do. And his ultimate goal wasn't to save humanity, because apparently that was impossible. His ultimate goal was to bring Dolores, or Christina, to the Sublime so she could recreate all of humanity, and in that way would possibly save it. And it's very unclear what is meant by that. At least I'm unclear, and I've watched other videos, and I haven't heard anyone explain that really properly to me. So, because I don't think anyone knows precisely what that means, how she would save the human race by recreating a simulation. Because the Sublime time travels differently, apparently, but those servers in Hoover Dam are only going to last for like 100 years at best. So if it's just recreating humanity in simulation, that's not going to last forever. And if it's actually recreating people, recreating more hosts, it's very unclear, and I haven't heard this explained properly to me. So Bernard's big plan had nothing to do with Frankie being the savior of the human race, or Maeve being a weapon. It was some unclear simulation thing involving Dolores, and to me that is simply not satisfying. And it's very dependent on what comes next in season 5, because if season 5 does have this great storyline that explains what the hell this thing is, then it will, in retrospect, could, in retrospect, justify season 4 and make me think better of it, and make me think, okay, so now I understand why Bernard lied about Maeve being a weapon. I understand why he lied about C being, the savior of humanity, because he needed this to get into place, because this thing, whatever happens in season 5 happens, and that's what needed to happen. But without that information, now there's speculation going on that Westworld will be canceled before season 5 airs, because there was a new head of HBO who's been canceling everything and people are worried that since Westworld's ratings are down, that it might be next on the chopping block. And I will say, if that is the case, then I will ultimately consider season 4 a failure, and it's a very bad place to end the show, because it's very up in the air and unclear where it's going on. And quite honestly, I think it's unnecessary, season 4 that is. I think they could have just ended the show after season 3, and it would have been a way better ending than season 4. Like, you don't need the season 4, because season 3 kind of opened it up. Like, the possibilities are open. It felt like a Fight Club-esque type ending, where, everyone, all the human beings' lives were being controlled by Rehoboam, and who was controlling everyone, and it was destroyed. So there's this new order put into place, or chaos, and it did, like, the possibilities are endless now that Rehoboam was destroyed, and the hosts are also now free. So the humanity is free, hosts are free, and the possibilities are endless. The only thread really that was still left open from season 3 was Hale, who had a really good storyline in season 3. But if that went unresolved, it wouldn't be that big of a deal to me. The ultimate story would have been a really great place to end the show, in my opinion. But this is a terrible place to end the show, because it's completely unclear on what the hell this plan with Dolores creating a new simulation, how's that going to save humanity? And by the way, we know that humanity isn't going to survive, even though there's still a bunch of outliers out there, even though Frankie saved the outliers and they're still out there. But we know that they're not going to make it and humanity is not going to survive. How do we know this? Because we're told so in dialogue. We are told, not shown, in other words. We're simply told by Bernard, well, humanity is not gonna last. Why? Why wouldn't humanity last? There's plenty of people out there. Why are they going to die? Why do we need this stupid simulation to somehow save the world? It doesn't make any sense. Now, again, all of this could be justified and could be clarified in season 5. So there is a season 5. I might look back on season 4 more favorably. And especially if it's a good season 5 that really answers all this and justifies all this, then I can look back on season 4 and be like, I was wrong. This is a great season. We needed this. It needed to build up to this great revelation that we had in season 5. But if there is no season 5, or season 5 does not justify all these pending storylines, then the season's a failure. Then the season actually shouldn't have existed, and they should have just ended the show after season 3, in my humble opinion. Now, one thing I didn't talk about is my opinion on the Christina storyline, which, again, you could say it all adds up, because it does, but I don't think it's particularly good storytelling. I think, they explained it at the end that everyone she was talking to was just a figment of her imagination, because she wasn't really in the city. She was just in the simulation of the city, controlling the city. And, there's a lot of pieces that seemed contradictory to that you could just easily dismiss as, well, that was just her inner self talking to her or whatever. And it does. You could logically explain it away, and it would logically make sense. But is it good storytelling, in my opinion? No. In my opinion, it's not a very satisfying resolution to this mystery, and so I'm not completely satisfied by this answer. But again, funny thing. Season 5 could fix this for me. If there is a Season 5, it could in retrospect be like, no, this is why Christina's storyline needed to happen that way, because she needs to do this thing, whatever she's going to do. So, it's funny because throughout the season I was saying, well, whether or not I like these episodes depends on how the season ends. But then when we got to the ending of Season 4, whether or not I like Season 4 as a whole depends on what they do with Season 5, if we do get a Season 5. And if we don't, then I think the season's a failure, personally. And that's just really how I look at it. So, my rating for Season 4 of Westworld as a whole, again, I can't give a definitive rating because I haven't seen Season 5 yet. But I'm going to say an 8. This could possibly drop if there is no Season 5 or Season 5 disappoints. But for now, and it could rise as Season 5 is amazing, by the way. But for now, I will give it an 8. Extremely good. Because there were, even though I felt the mysteries were not resolved in a very interesting fashion, and even though I felt disappointed and let down by the fact that all these characters were killed off unceremoniously, because they're going to be recreated in this simulation thing anyway, so the actors will still be around, so don't worry about it. And even though I was, I think I was disappointed that Maeve turned out to be useless and that C turned out to not be the savior of humanity. I felt like, it makes logical sense that Bernard would just say this shit to get where he wants to go, but it's not very interesting storytelling in my opinion. But I'm still going to give it an 8 because there's so much good things this season. There's so many effective, creepy-ass episodes that reveal mid-season that Hale had already won. Was one of the most risky, shocking twists I've seen in television ever. And had this season actually had a very powerful and satisfying resolution, this could have been one of my favorite seasons of all time. This could have been right up there with Season 3 as one of my favorite seasons of ever aired ever, but because, to be clear, I would have given it a strong 10 out of 10. But because the resolution was not so satisfying, was not definitive, it's actually very dependent on what happens on Season 5, it gets an 8. And an 8 out of 10. But again, a lot of strong emotional stuff. The big reveal mid-season, also the big emotional payoff with Frankie, her saying goodbye to her father and her father saying that he already died a long time ago. That was heart-wrenching. That was effective. That was good. Christina, even though I didn't like the resolution of her storyline, it was intriguing throughout. It had the way they tied in the different things with, and Hale was a really great villain and using the insects. So there was still a lot of good stuff this season, even if I did think the ending could have been better. So that's it for my review of Westworld Season 4. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to check out my channel as I cover many other shows at the moment, covering Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, House of the Dragon Season 1, and I will be covering Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, as well as doing live discussions on She-Hulk over on these reviews. So be sure to check out my channel and subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks so much for watching.